Hi, it's Erin O'Neal with Enabled Environments. And today I'm going to talk about sensory processing issues. Those of us who work in education or with people who have disabilities might sometimes refer to it as sensory processing disorder. However, it's not an officially recognized disorder in the DSM-5, so you can't use it on official paperwork or anything as a disability. But we know that some people process sensory input in a much different way from other people. Now, when you think of someone with sensory issues, you always think of the kid at the birthday party who says, "Oh, balloons are loud, I don't like them," or someone who's easily overwhelmed by loud sounds, surprises, flashing lights, overwhelming environments, and they need to get away and have a quiet space. Yes, that is sensory processing issues. However, there's also the flip side of that. There are people whose sensory input does not receive in the same way that the rest of us do. So they're actually always seeking more input from their sensory systems in order to understand the world around them in the same way that those of us who don't have sensory issues understand it. Now, what this might look like is, if you're in education, you know these kids, the ones that are loud, they have to fill a silence with noise, they press on things, they run into things, they're crash, smash, bash, in your bubble, in your space, everything is intense, swinging, spinning, just they need more input into their body. The avoiders, of course, that's called sensory seekers. The sensory avoiders are the ones you first think of, wearing headphones, sunglasses, the lights are bright, the sound is bright, they just need to be quiet. Those kids are also sometimes picky eaters because they don't like the sensory input of strong tastes or different textures that are unfamiliar with their food. They also might be very picky about clothing, not liking tight or scratchy things on them because, again, their sense of touch is also hypersensitive. So for our sensory avoidant children, everything is coming at them just amplified from what you or I might feel, or children or adults. They're experiencing the sound at a much higher rate. It gets their attention. It interrupts their thought. They're experiencing touch that is far more intense than what other people experience. So they like to surround themselves with things that are soft, safe, familiar, quiet, to have those headphones to mute the sound. People that struggle from too much sensory input really benefit from a sensory space where they can get away. And it's one of the main reasons we're seeing these sensory spaces pop up in places like hospitals or public museums or even churches that are trying to create a place where if people get overstimulated by the sensory input or any kind of sound or environment that they're in, they can go to this space to calm down and regulate their emotions again so that they can rejoin the activity. Now, there's the flip side is those sensory seekers. And when I design a sensory room in my school, I want to provide something for both of those because the sensory seekers, they don't really understand where their body is in space or how they exist in relation to everything unless they get that sensory input that we use to orient ourselves. I can hear that the birds are singing outside. I can hear that a car is driving by on the road. I understand the world around me based on my senses. There's also a sense called proprioceptive, which I'll talk about in another video, so watch for that one, which is the sense of where your body is in space. It's felt by your joints and your muscles. So those kids who don't get enough proprioceptive input from, say, sitting in a chair in a classroom, they feel like their body is discombobulated, it's floating. They're not really aware of how they relate in the world around them. So they feel like they need to lean on things or press on things. They might crave sitting in a teacher's lap or sitting in a more supportive, like a beanbag chair, crawling or rolling on the floor because they're just trying to get more pressure and understand themselves from that sensory input. So for those type of students, I would put things in my sensory room that allow them to feel the movement, a slide, a swing, active things, seesaws, things that spin that they can sit on that help them to get that in a safe, controlled environment so that when they go back into the classroom or whatever environment they're trying to participate in, they get that sensory need met first. So sometimes you'll hear people talk about a sensory diet. Really, it's a basic need for us. It's like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You have food, warmth, safety, all those things at the bottom. Being able to understand who you are in relation to the world around you is a pretty basic need. I don't know exactly where it fits in the triangle, but it's pretty basic. So a student is going to have a hard time concentrating on their work and sitting still if they aren't getting their sensory needs met. So the sensory room should be some space that they can access easily to get those needs met so that they can then go focus on what they need to do. And that's going to be another video about how you allow access to your space and when you should use the space. But I just wanted to make people aware that sensory rooms are not just for those who are seeking a quiet escape. It can also be for those who need a space to get their wiggles out or get some just sights and sounds that give them some more sensory input than what they would get in the environment that they're in that is understimulating for them. So we'll talk in a future video about how you can actually do both in the same room if you don't have the space or the budget for both a mobility gym type of space and a quiet sensory corner type of space. Thanks for listening.